To get started on this, the truck actually does not have a drain plug for the radiator, so you're gonna have to come down here. You can do this from underneath, but it might get messy, so I prefer to do it from up top. And we're gonna undo that hose clamp right there, and then pull the lower radiator hose. Obviously you wanna have a drain bucket right underneath to catch all the fluid, because it might make a mess. Very, very gently pull the hose off and make sure it doesn't make a huge mess. Moving back up top, I'm going to work my way from one side of the radiator to the other. So I'm going to start with the upper radiator hose, get this disconnected. Careful, there might still be coolant in it. Remove this from its mounting point and set it aside. Remove this hose from right here and remove this hose clamp. Remove the hose. And if you follow the radiator down, there's another hose here, which I know you can't see, but do the same thing. Remove the clamp, disconnect the hose, make sure you drain it into your collection bucket. The next thing you want to do is, if you look at the fans, there's a connector on each one of them. Press down on the locking tab and pull it down and out. Again, you want to do that to both of them. And right down here in the middle, there's a clip that holds on the wiring. Grab a trim tool or a screwdriver if you don't have a trim tool like this, and pop it right out. Right here, there is a hose that you have to disconnect from the fans. Next, you'll have two 13mm bolts holding on the fan. Remove both of those. There's one right here, one right here. Don't confuse them with these. These hold the radiator, and we'll take them out at a later point. Then you can pull the fans back and up and out of the way. There we go. On the passenger side of the radiator, there are these transmission cooler lines that you have to disconnect, so pop the caps off. And then you can see that there's a very small clip here. You can either use 2 picks or 2 small screwdrivers and push it down and out like that. Then you can put another screwdriver in, or a pick, whatever you have, and pull it out of the way. There might be transmission fluid coming out when you do this, but at this point, pull the line out. And there are 2 of them. There's this one on the top, and there's another one lower, which I'm not going to show you, but it's the same procedure. And now, just like with the fans, take the 2 13mm bolts off that hold the radiator brackets in place. Go ahead and pull the radiator away and lift it right up. From your old radiator, what you're going to have to do is remove these rubber grommets that are on the mounting brackets. So to take this off, I'm going to come in with a very wide screwdriver and pry this out of here. The reason I want a wide one is because if I get a narrow screwdriver, I could accidentally pierce the rubber. There's less surface area. So there you have it. Now do the same on the other side, and let's get these in the new radiator. And to put it in, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but still doable. What you have to do is basically just press it in there. There you go. Do the same to the other side. With your new radiator should come new fittings for the transmission cooler lines. So go ahead and start them into their areas. And with a 19mm wrench, I'm going to snug this up. Be very gentle. Be very careful not to break it, obviously, because this is plastic and this can snap right off, but make it snug and do the same to both. The last thing to take out from the old radiator are these rubber mounts on the bottom. There's a little tab, which I'll show you after this comes out, but you pry on it with a screwdriver and this rubber mount comes off. That's the little tab right there. You just want to squeeze it in and then the mount can come right off. And to install these rubber mounts on the bottom, you line it up and press it on. And of course, do the same to both sides. Take your new radiator and slide it down in. Try to get those rubber grommets on the bottom to fit into their holes. And once they slide in, there you go, once they slide in, you can press it up against the radiator sport up here. Start in your bolts just to hold it in and snug these up. To make sure I don't over tighten these, I'm gonna finish them off by hand. The bolt will bottom out because there's a metal sleeve in the bushing, so you'll know when it gets close, it won't ruin these bushings. Now the new fittings for the transmission cooler lines came with those little C-clips. So what you can do is just slide the line in, press it in, make sure it clicks, and then pull out on it to ensure that it's locked. And then you want to put this cap over. What this cap does is it prevents the clip from falling out if it ever decides to do so. Since I have this whole side open without the fans in, it's easier for me to put the hose back on, make sure it's bottomed out all the way into the radiator, and then secure the clamp. I'm going to spin the clamp so that it's accessible even with the fans in place. Move this out of the way, and then do the same with this top line here. Press it in, make sure it clicks, give it a tug, and then put the cap back on. Sometimes you have to persuade them a little bit. The last thing on this side is the overflow, which I can put back right now. I'm also going to spin this clamp to be accessible from this side. Now you'll notice that I left the lower radiator hose disconnected, and that's because I want to put it on from underneath. And the reason I want to do that is because I want the clamp facing downward so that the next person that has to replace this radiator can access the clamp from underneath much easier than I did. So having said that, the next thing that needs to go in are the fans. So I'll slide them in from the top, make sure it doesn't press onto your radiator fins and damages them. And these tabs that are on the side of the fans are going to hook into the radiator. There's a slot that they have to go into, and they sit down in there. Don't forget about the hose, that's down there. And before I go any further, I'm going to secure the fans in so they don't flop around. Next, I'm going to connect the fans in. Check your connectors for any corrosion and fix it if necessary. You definitely want your fans to be working well. Listen for a click on the connectors. Moving up higher, secure in any hoses that you've detached. And don't forget about the upper radiator hose. Squeeze the clamp, slide it on, and then try to position the clamp in the same area that it was. That ensures that it's going to seal the best it can. If your clamp feels weak, it's not holding tension like it's supposed to, definitely replace it because the hose could blow off the radiator if it's not being held on tight enough. Okay, from underneath, put on the hose. Make sure it's all the way bottomed out. Get the clamp. And unfortunately for me, it's locked in the open position, so I can move it without my pliers. Slide it into place. Slide the clamp on and make sure it's seated. Next, locate your coolant tank. Open up the cap. And here I have set up a spill-free / burping funnel. This will not only help you not spill, but it will also make it so that this is the highest point in the cooling system and all the air will want to come out through here as opposed to getting trapped in the system. Next, fill up the system with manufacturer's specified or compatible fluid. Once the car ran for 20-30 minutes, however long it takes to fully warm up the engine, shut it off, and then let's remove this. At this point, you want to top off your reservoir so it's at the maximum line. Mine is there already. So put the cap back on, make sure it's nice and tight, clean up your mess, and then take it for a road test.